Sorry about that. I accidentally screwed up my recording, but this gives me a chance to kind of go back over what I was saying and maybe, you know, uh, hang on a second. No, I don't know how to set the font size, but I will quickly, oops, sorry. I will quickly make this bigger. So this is Chimera Linux, right? And Chimera Linux is really cool because it's got D in it. It's got free BSD, or no, it's got BSD and some LLVM user space stuff. It's got no GNU core utils, and it uses muscle instead of GCC, which is really cool. If you've never used a muscle distribution before, it basically means you're not going to run a whole lot because a lot of things are dependent on GNU these days. So good luck with that. But it does support Flatpak, and what Flatpak does is it lets you run everything in the sandbox. So you can have GCC programs, usually for like proprietary software. But you may be wondering, okay, well that sounds pretty cool, but it uses GNOME, and I hate GNOME. And I personally don't hate GNOME, but that's a different story. I actually rather like it, but that's as somebody that doesn't really rice his desktop. Uh, GNOME, however, I believe GNOME and XFCE are two desktop environments that do not require GCC in order to compile. So it makes sense for a muscle distribution, right? No, this doesn't mean that you're running a source-based distribution. You are still running a binary distribution, which is fine, and it has a user repository, so that's pretty cool. It does also have they have good porting documentation, so if you're into porting things over to this, they do have, and people will help you on their matrix if you're interested in that. For me, I'm just an end user. I don't really give a fuck. I'm not gonna port anything, but it is pretty cool to see this project come out because it does a lot of very interesting things, especially filling a void where get it void because one of the only distributions that ships muscle is Gentoo Void and this basically and like Alpine. And so having more distributions that do that, especially if you don't like OpenRC or you don't like run it, there is D in it now, and a lot of people do like D in it. I haven't delved into it enough to know why, but I do like the syntax so far. And oh, sorry, and I'm pretty sure that writing services would be pretty easy for it, but I don't know yet. You know. So as far as my programs go, because this is technically a minimalist distribution, Void doesn't like to call themselves minimalist, but they are actually maybe more minimalist than this. So this is all that you get pre-installed, and I actually did have to install Firefox myself because it came with this web browser, and maybe I don't even know what it's called. It might be like the GNOME web browser, whatever they ship, Epiphany or something. I don't know. Uh, all I know is I wanted Firefox, so I installed that, and installing things is pretty easy. It uses a package manager called APK, and it seems pretty fast. So that's cool. And it does have Flatpak, so if you don't want to, or if you need something that isn't on the repository, it's in Flatpak, which I needed a lot with Void because Void does not ship forks. So if you want something like LibreWolf, you gotta go through Flatpak, or you gotta compile it from the resource base user repository, which is fine. You can do that, and you can do that on here too. You can compile whatever you want, because they do have documentation on compilation. So, however, it's still not a source-based distribution. So bear that in mind. What it does do though, that I think is pretty cool, is they haven't shipped it yet. They still use elognd, but they're working on a full replacement for elognd called Turnstile. And once that comes out, so if you don't know anything about elognd, it basically hacks around systemd, and because a lot of programs are not dependent on systemd, particularly desktop environments, they need their login service. So CD and elognd help to use that, like use desktop environments on a non-systemd distribution. The install process for this is pretty easy. I did it in about 10-20 minutes, and that was from booting to desktop, super easy. The documentation is similar to Void's. I don't want to say Gentoo because Gentoo's has a shit ton more that you probably don't need. So I like skip through half the handbook. And Arches is probably a bit more complicated, I guess, just a bit. But Void seems to have the most similar layout, if you know what I mean. You just kind of follow the steps one by one and you're good to go. But it has instructions because, oh yeah, the other thing I forgot to say is this also, like Gen 2, supports PowerPC, which makes it really cool. And it supports like Raspberry Pi, ARM, it supports, I think it supports RISC-V, I don't know. But it's got a few architectures that it supports, which makes it a very useful distribution for people running these systems that kind of have limited options now. A lot of distributions did drop support for PowerPC, and ARM support is still kind of on the way. So it is cool to see a distribution focus on other arches rather than just x86 64. That makes it really cool. So I do like this project overall. I think this is pretty cool. If you want to know how to get NeoFetch though, you have to add two repositories. You need to, or I guess just one for NeoFetch, but you need to add the user repository, which would be. Let me see if I can find that real quick. I did just have it. But, hang on a second. Oh yeah, here we go. abk add Chimera user repo. Or sorry, repo user. Okay, and it uses do as instead of sudo, which is fine because that's what I use on Gen 2, just because I'm lazy. But and I didn't want to read how to get sudo working. So repo user, and then you're probably gonna want contrib, which it'll show you that in the installation on how to get contrib. And when you install that, because this repository, the user repository, will probably depend on things from contrib. So just use contrib by default, or like have that when you're installing. Just add it, and then you should be fine. So I haven't checked out the repos yet. I don't really use a lot of software these days, so I'm not expecting a whole lot, but especially for muscle. But I'm not expecting like Gen 2 levels of repository here. I'm probably going to use Flatpak for a lot of things, especially because most of the software I use sadly is proprietary, let's be honest. So but yeah, really cool project overall. I really like it. I think that if you want to, especially if you're really interested in trying muscle, you've only got so many options right now. And especially if you want muscle without systemd, I don't even know, does systemd support muscle? It may not actually. um, so if you're using muscle, you're not using systemd probably because Alpine doesn't use it, Void doesn't use it, Gen 2 doesn't use it, and of course this doesn't use it. So, and now you've got a choice of like 4 different inits because a lot of people like D in it. So you got that option. Now you got OpenRC on Alpine and what's it called? And Gen 2. Sorry. I had a brain fart for a second. And you've got run it on Void. So now you've got D in it, which is really cool. So I like what they're doing. I think that GNOME is a fine choice for a desktop because I mean I like it. Enterprise distribution seems to support it. It's got a lot of backing. It's a good choice for this. And I'm sure it supports other desktop environments or window managers if that's more your thing, because you can make this probably as minimal as you want. And even with this desktop based package I installed that's supposed to come with a lot of stuff, I didn't notice any bloat whatsoever. So thanks for 100 subscribers. I didn't really make this channel thinking I would even get any subscribers, but more just to make videos based on topics of what I wanted to talk about. So that's why if I don't upload very often, it's because I got nothing to talk about. But this is kind of my 100 subscriber special is because today I noticed I had 100 and I thought, oh, well, I'm installing Chimera anyways, let's talk about it. So yeah, thanks if you're subscribed, really cool. Obviously I do read the comments. You probably seen me reply to your comment unless I just had nothing to say. And I'll see what I can do for more videos, but this is my first like distro video, or sorry, not my first distro video, but another distro video, that I'm doing because I think that there's cool projects out there that not a lot of people are talking about. And I don't know. I'm kind of filling that void, I guess. Just for myself, really. I like listening to myself talk, honestly. All right, that should be it. Thanks.